Hello everyone. So continuing with our computer programming 101 practice, this is today's question, power of 3. So the question says that given an integer n, return true if it is a power of 3, otherwise return false. Okay. So that's basically what the question is. Here are a few examples. For example, 27 we know is 3 to the power of 3, right? And 0 is not a power of 3, and 9 is 3 to the power 2. So all these, so whenever it's a power of 3 you return true, otherwise you return the boolean false, right? So let's see how we can try to approach this problem now. So let's talk about the powers of 3, right? So we know that 1 is definitely a power of 3, right? Because this is 3 to the power 0, right? And any other power of 3 can be achieved by multiplying 3 some number of times to 1, right? So a number n is a power of 3 if it can be written like this, right? And any number n that can't be written like this is not a power of 3. Okay, so that's what we're going to use. This is the idea that we're going to use. Okay, so if we have a number n that can be written in this form, then we'll say that this is a power of 3. Okay, but if we have a number n that can't be written in this form, then we'll say that this isn't a power of 3. All right, now how do we check if this number n can be written in this form, right? So the first thing you should note is that if you have any negative number or 0, okay, then it definitely can't be of this form, right? Because if n is less than 0, then that means -1 comes in its factors somewhere, right? But this definitely doesn't have a -1 in it, right? This form. So we know that any negative number can't be a power of 3, and also we just know by a clear observation that 0 isn't a power of 3, right? So n less than equal to 0 means that we need to return false, because these numbers are not powers of 3, right? Now for positive numbers, what we can do is, if we're given a positive number, right, we try to keep dividing it by 3 as long as possible. Okay, so we try to keep dividing it by 3, let's say until we reach 1. Okay, if we're able to reach 1 only by doing this operation of dividing it by 3 again and again, then that means it's a power of 3. Okay, but if we are not able to reach 1 by only dividing it by 3 again and again, which would mean that there are some factors other than 3 in this number, right? Any factors like that. So this would mean that this number isn't actually a power of 3, because there are some other factors in its representation, right? It's not of this clear form that we had. So that's all we have to do. We have to keep trying to divide the number by 3 again and again. And if we are able to reach 1, that means that the number is a power of 3. But if we're not able to reach 1, okay, or if we can't divide it by 3 any further, like for example, if this number also had some other factors like 2 into 5 or something like that, we can divide it by 3 a few times, right? But now I can't really divide this by 3 anymore, right? It will go into decimals. So I can't really divide it by 3. It will leave a remainder. So this number is not a power of 3. But if these numbers weren't there, then we can reach 1 only by dividing it by 3. So it is a power of 3. So that's all for the idea. Now let's try to formally write down our algorithm. So the algorithm is really simple, right? It would just be that the first thing would be, if our number is less than equal to 0, then false, right? That means it isn't a power of 3, right? And the other step would be a loop, right? Because we need to keep dividing this number by 3 again and again and again. Okay, so how do we do this operation again and again and again? We put it in a while loop. Okay, and the condition for ending the while loop would be if we are able to reach the number 1. Okay, so that means that while n is not equal to 1, we should keep dividing the number by 3. Okay, if it's possible. That means first we should try to find n mod 3, right, which is the remainder of n when divided by 3. If this is equal to 0, that means we can divide it by 3, so we should go ahead and divide it by 3, right? But if it's not equal to 0, that means we have a number that isn't equal to 1, okay, and it can't be divided by 3 also. So this means that n isn't a power of 3. That means we should return false here. Okay, and eventually if we can reach out of the loop, okay, that would mean that we've reached n is equal to 1, right? It will only come out of the loop if n becomes 1. So if it does come out of the loop, then we can return return true, right? If it does come out of the loop, it means that n has become 1, because that is the ending condition for the loop, right? The loop only keeps going on till n is not equal to 1. So as soon as n is 1, this loop will end and we'll come to this statement 7. So if we are able to make n 1 just by dividing it by 3 again and again, then we should return true. So that's the algorithm. Now the coding part would be really simple because we've written the algorithm in pseudocode too. So let's just move on to that. So the first thing we need to check is if n is less than equal to 0, then we can directly return false, right? And if n is less than equal to 0, then we'll directly go out of the function, right? So if that is the case, we'll never be able to reach like line 6 or something. So without using an else, we can directly write the further code. So that should be while n is not equal to 1, right? Our loop should keep running till n is not equal to 1. In the loop, we should check if n still has 3 as a factor. That means if n mod 3 is equal to 0, then we divide n by 3 and continue the loop, right? But if that's not the case, that means we've reached a number that isn't 1 but doesn't have 3 as a factor either. That means this number isn't a power of 3. So we just return false directly from inside the loop only. Okay, so that will not only end the loop, it will just come out of the function and return false to the main program. But if we're able to reach line 12 by exiting the loop, that means the loop only ended when n was 1, right? So that means we've made the number n equal to 1 just by going on dividing it by 3 again and again. So that means it is a power of 3 and we can return true. So that's it. That's all we have to do in the code. Let's try to run it now. So it does accept on these sample cases. Let's try to finally submit it. Great. So we've solved the problem and it's clear that it works. So thank you for watching the video. If you guys have any doubts, please feel free to leave them in the comments and keep practicing.